Now, one of our favourite cars at electrifying.com is, of course, the wonderful Kia EV6. And judging by the amount of love that this car gets from you guys, it's one of your favourites too. Now, the big question is, though, which exact model do you want to have when you are signing on that dotted line? Or probably by now it might be a click. But anyway, we are here to help, and we are going to find you the exact one that you want.
So let's look at what's on offer. The EV6 ranges in price from £44,195 to £61,595. That top price is for the Porsche Taycan-baiting EV6 GT, which has a daft 577 brake horsepower. Now, as much as we love it and think it looks great value next to other cars with that type of performance, that power isn't going to be needed by most of us. So I'm going to discount that one, sadly. At the other end of the scale is the entry-level Air. That's only available with the single motor and rear-wheel drive, which gives 226 brake horsepower and a 0 to 60 time of 7.3 seconds. Now that's not going to make you feel ill or scare passengers, but it's more than adequate, I reckon. More interesting is a 328-mile range and super fast DC charging thanks to Kia's clever 800-volt system. Honestly, you will feel so smug at the charging station as you pull away half an hour before everyone else.
Now, the Air has plenty of equipment too, but if you are looking for something a little bit more sporty, then you're gonna have to cough up an extra £3,000, or it's about 25 quid a month on finance for this, the GT line.
That adds some body colour bits and some spoilers, privacy glass at the rear and funkier looking wheels. They are still 19 inches though, which is important, as we will get to a little later.
Now, in terms of equipment, you get the vehicle to load system, so you really can make yourself a cup of tea anywhere, as long as you've got the car with you. There is wireless charging for your phone, and there is front parking sensors, which I just can't live without anymore. There are also some extra safety tech. There's adaptive headlamps, and I think the seats are nicer, particularly because they are electric. Classy. Now, if you happen to live somewhere much cooler, ice cold, like the top of Scotland, and perhaps you're always reaching the limit of the range, it might be worth investing £900 for the heat pump. Now, it sounds like quite a lot, but it does give you an extra 10% in terms of range. However, this is only going to be worthwhile if you are maxing out the range on a regular basis. Otherwise, it's not going to be worth the money or the investment.
If you're somewhere chilly, you might think the all-wheel drive version is worth it too. That adds an extra motor at the front and, as well as extra grip, also brings more power. A not inconsiderable 95 brake horsepower, in fact, which knocks 2 seconds off the 0 to 60 time.
Now, whilst that sounds a lot more fun, well, actually it is more fun, but it is worth noting that it's going to knock 14 miles off the official range. Plus, you get a much more shallow frunk, just about enough space for the cables, and that's because the motor goes in there.
Next up the ladder is the GT Line S. That little S adds £4,500 onto the bill. It too is available with rear or four-wheel drive, and the extra cash adds a big sunroof, heated rear seats, and some cooling fans in the front seats. There are also even more cameras, a better sound system, and a few other gizmos. But the most significant upgrade is the wheels, which grow in size from 19 to 20 inches. Nice, huh? Well, you might think so, because they look nice, but they have a dark side. They're wider, which means they create more drag on the road, and consequently reduce the range by 15 miles. That's more than an extra motor takes away. If you have the big wheels and the all-wheel drive, you only just scrape 300 miles of range.
Now, I would say that I don't think the EV6 copes as well with the bumps on the road with the larger wheels. Also, because you've got a bit of extra weight up front, it's just not quite as sharp, it's not quite as tidy round the corners. So I think it does compromise the steering slightly. And that, of course, is because you do have 105 kilos extra up front. It's a bit like having a gentleman of slightly above average proportions just perched on your bonnet at all times. You know, it's bound to make your driving a little bit less pleasurable. Tom, if you wouldn't mind hopping off. Thanks. Okay, so it's time for the conclusion. What is the best EV6 in the range? Well, it's this one, of course, which is the mid-range GT line with rear-wheel drive. And it's the best seller, so clearly you guys agree with us too.
Why? Well, it looks better. It has some nicer kit than the Air, plus some extra safety tech. The additional power of the all-wheel drive is nice, obviously, but far from essential, as this lighter single-motor car feels more than adequate. It's nicer to drive and 6 insurance groups lower than the top deck Model 2. Then you get quite a lot more range, of course, which means you might get home while someone with a GT Line S will have to admire their bigger wheels while getting a top-up charge. Oh, and there's the frunk.
So do you agree? Have I got this 100% right or totally and utterly wrong? Do tell us in the comments below. Get opinionated, start around. We want to hear from you. And whilst you're there, do remember to subscribe to our channel and follow Electrifying for all the latest news and updates on the world of electric vehicles.